welcome back. This is week 8 of Tuesdays with Tom webinar fundraising series. This week we're going to discuss international grants, which are a necessary little tidbit. They're not too often used because it's kind of a lot of them are on a global level. So anything that you're doing overseas and things like that would be included in kind of this. But I did want to include it so that you guys are well-rounded. I'm going to share my screen right now. And okay, all right. International grants. Just gonna, all right. So what this webinar is going to cover is just kind of international grants 101, who funds, what they fund, and where. Part 1 is top general international grant makers and where to search. Part 2 will go into animal rights and welfare funders because that's what we're doing. Although some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about in the beginning is going to be kind of an overall reach. And a lot of times with funders, you can find ways in with the causes that you're doing if you align with their mission and vision and their intended outcomes. Part 3, equine protection, rescue, and sanctuary grants. And then we're going to talk a little bit about eligibility and strategy. So International Grants 101, what are they? It's funding from global donor agencies, private foundations, and governments for cross-border charitable, educational, and developmental work. So these can be funders overseas. These can be funders in the U.S. that have causes. A lot of them are in Sudan. We did a lot of work with the Lost Boys of Sudan, bringing funds in there to get them water infrastructure and things like that in the past. Common focus areas, the main ones are not so much equine, but they can be tied in, like I said. So human rights, public health, and then infrastructure and things like that, like I said about the water, climate action, and poverty alleviation are kind of the areas. Where it flows, often the global south. So like lower Africa and Asia and money going out like that. So a lot of times it's not too much up towards like the Netherlands and things like that because they tend to have the funding. But these kind of work on the lower income, lower socioeconomic areas. They support local and grassroots organizations in those areas. So a lot of the sanctuaries, a lot of the schools and things like that. So winning the funding, aligning your mission tightly with each donor's focus and geographic scope. So that's what I was talking about, ways to tie the animal rights kind of grants into things as something that impacts social norms and things like that. So yeah, so that's that's kind of looking at an overview of that. General international grants. The major funding is cross-border work, and this is kind of where to find those open opportunities. Some of the top international grant makers are the Ford Foundation, which is huge for human welfare. They do animal issues, democratic initiatives, and social justice worldwide. They also do a lot of infrastructure work. The Oak Foundation, these are smaller grants, and well, they do go to 10 million, but generally they're around the 25 to 100,000 areas, and they address inequity and sustainability. So again, that can tie into some of the animal issues too, especially when you're talking about livestock and things like that sustain populations having kind of food deserts and hunger issues. Global giving is another, connects grassroots groups with corporate and donor funding. So it's not a funder itself, but it kind of is that liaison between the groups and prospective donors. The International Foundation, between 25 and 100,000, like the Oak Foundation, for agriculture, water, health. So again, education in developing regions. Again, this can tie into especially with the livestock, animal issues in other areas, particularly in lower Africa. Open Society Foundation, that's civil society, worldwide human rights, justice, and democratic governance. So that's kind of not so much into the horse area of it. It's just a good thing to have in case you're dealing with kind of domestic violence, things like that, indigenous women disappearing, things like that, which often does tie into animal issues, the horses and things like that with the indigenous populations. Where to search for opportunities? Instrumental is very, very good. You can use that for free. There is a paid site, so there's a paid portion to it. So when you go in, you're going to get kind of a rudimentary, smaller database. It's not going to be the full-blown thing, but it still works very well and it's free. Grants.gov again, we've talked about that in the past. That's a central hub for U.S. federal agencies that fund international programming. Funds for non-government organizations. That's a directory of global foundations, and it ties into the UN and the European Union in those tenders. There is actually money from the UN, and they're doing stuff with animals and rescue work. So that's really interesting. Grant Watch, it tracks active international grant cycles and capital opportunities. So you can just go in there and see what is going on and what's being funded. So to see if that matches with your programming. Key eligibility considerations. Your expenditure responsibility. So U.S. Nonprofit granting to foreign charities must follow IRS ER rules. So funds are used only for charitable purposes. And another thing you want to really kind of keep in mind is that these are going to be different laws and different restrictions and different ways of registering for things. So you want to be careful. Probably wouldn't hurt to talk to an attorney or especially an international attorney just to make sure that you're following that because with funders like especially with the government agencies, if one little piece is off, you can lose that funding. So local registration, many grants require non-government organizations to register in the country of the operation. So I haven't run into this too much, but I know it happens, and that you would have to, or not have to, but you might need to establish a fiscal sponsorship with with a nonprofit already existing in that country or region or geography where you're looking to do your work, and then they would get the funding and distribute to you. And actually, it's kind of nice because they oversee the financials too. So it does take a little bit of a burden off that way. Mission donor fit. Make sure you fit your mission with their mission. Confirm that your focus area and geographic scope align with the donor before applying. Don't waste their time. They get pretty angry sometimes with that. So now I want to look a little bit at animal rights and welfare grants, funding to end factory farming abuse, deliver crisis relief, and scale grassroots advocacy as it applies to animal welfare. So here's some of the top animal welfare grant makers. There's the Animal Charity Evaluators, movement grants. Those are interventions against high volume suffering, funding under resource regions. So it's animal suffering again overseas. This is probably going to work more with livestock and things like that to make sure that there's food supply for the populations and that it's not diseased food supply and the animals are healthy and all that. Animal Welfare Fund, that's high impact giving, focused on ending cage confinement, aquatic welfare, humane slaughter across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So this is a big one if you're looking at trying to put an end to the export of horses for slaughter in Mexico and in Latin America. Um, so that would be an example of somewhere that you could go. And they're pretty cool to reach out to. I've talked to them in the past, and they're pretty passionate. They're a lot like Amnesty International is, which is another good organization. It wouldn't fit into this, but they kind of work the same way. Animals International Global Grants, that's support for grassroots groups and organizations that are facing emergencies and hostile climates worldwide. So if there's floods, if there's earthquakes and things that are impacting the animal population, you can reach out to them for that. The SPCA International Shelter Support Fund, it helps small shelters grow with sterilization, um, veterinary immunization, and anti-abuse campaigns. But it's a chapter of the ASPCA here in the United States. The William and Charlotte Parks Foundation. The Parks Foundation, their smaller grants are up to 10,000, but it's for research, legal advocacy, and grassroots welfare work. So looking, I know that they've funded some things with animal disease and the research around that and how to vaccinate and things like that, and how to get populations to actually vaccinate. Because a lot of the countries that they just don't believe in that. So that's that foundation. So they're decent too. It's like I said, they're smaller grants, but it's okay. Every dollar helps. Niche and regional directories. So the International Grant Watch is an animal welfare um, database. It shows active cycles for wildlife conservancy, veterinary research, and then shelter development. So they have resources that you can reach out to them, and they can help with those things. Funds for NGOs, and that they have a companion animal focus. So the funds for non-government organizations is kind of overreaching, and it goes into a bunch of areas, but they do have this companion animal focus. And it's legal protection for dogs and cats and awareness campaigns and regional enforcement. So working with animal control and things like that. Global animal rights funding is very, very competitive. They're generally pretty big grants, except for the smaller foundations and things like that, which aren't as competitive, which is good. But the big ones, the federal funding and things like that, yeah, you really want to make sure you align your mission and your vision and all of that really, really well, so that your programs are targeted very, very well to what they want to achieve with those grants. So, the part three is the equine grants, kind of just that focus. So it's reducing slaughter, funding emergency care, and sustaining rescues and sanctuaries. The top kind of this is not all of them. This is not even close to all of them. This is just kind of an example of some of the top ones. The Foundation for the Horse, working equity grant. It's 2,500 to 10,000 for first-time applicants, and then you can do better later on as you prove that you're able to um, achieve all of the goals in the first grant that you get, and they will fund you for a pretty long time. So that's veterinary training, owner education, sustainable community care for working horses, donkeys, and mules. The Brook USA Bridge grants, that's a part of the Equus Foundation. It's not, they're working in tandem. I think the Equus Foundation just kind of gives them some funds to be able to do these grants, but they're emergency capital for equine charities in distress. And that's going to be your veterinary, your feed, your hay shortages, disaster response again, fires, God forbid, and rehoming for animals that are displaced. So there's no geographic limits on that. It's again, that's not going to be a huge grant, but they will fund globally. So if you know something, I mean, we just did something with the Marwin horses in India wrote a contract for that. So that's a possibility for them down the line. American Wild Horse Conservation capacity grants. These are Homes for Horses Coalition. So again, this is emergency relief. And I guess the three I picked were kind of the emergency relief ones. I really want to get more comprehensive on the ones that are just for sanctuary and things like that. I'm working on that now. These guys also do facility expansion, which is really huge. It's for wild horses and for burro rescues. And I'm not sure if that is land purchase. I think it is just for the facility improvement, so the infrastructure, water, and electricity and things like that. So a couple of more, little more familiar ones. Equine Network Foundation, Home for Every Horse. These guys are with Absorbing and Zoes, and those two funders are those two um, uh, veterinary supply companies are great advocates. They're just amazing. So these guys do disaster relief and facility repair grants, which is huge because I think you can use it for like your outdoor arena, covering your arena and things like that. It's not enough money to pay for the whole thing, but you can subsidize a matching grant to get your arena covered or things like that. And it's also for emergency surgeries and medical procedures. But again, it caps out at $4,500. The Equus Foundation, Equine Welfare Grants, those again are kind of small, 500 to 5,000 for just day-to-day care, and a lot of it's veterinary, farrier, and then your feed and your bedding and rehabilitation equipment, which is uh, good because it's for purchase of scales and things like that, which it's really always, well, it's nice to have a scale on premises. So you know where you're at with your horse's weights and stuff. This is kind of just an overview of the grant sizes. These PowerPoints will be available on my website, so you can always go back and reference, and this will kind of give you just an idea of who's funding what and how much. And I do these spreadsheets all the time just so I have it and I can just kind of sort and know I can sort by if it's an equine grant, if it's animal welfare and that, or I can sort by the amount. So I have spreadsheets everywhere, but they come in very handy. And really simple ones like this, it can be really beneficial. So you can always reference back to this one too. So that's it. So winning strategy and key takeaways, lead with alignment, match your mission, your focus area, and geography to each donor. So really be careful with that and make sure that you're reading everything that they're putting out in their RFP request for funding proposals, and make sure that you're looking at everything because these guys sometimes with the smaller foundations, they're program officers are great and you can talk to them, but with these bigger ones. If they feel like you're wasting their time there and you're not reading everything, they're gonna get a little irritated with you. So mind the rules, plan for expenditure responsibility and local NGO registration early. So you really want to have your financial structure in place so that you know exactly where every bit of that money is going. If they call for a site visit or anything like that, you have that all the time ready to go. So if you plan for that and have those pieces in place and those structures in place, somebody's going to call and you can say, "Yep, there it is. It's right here. I have everything ready for you right now." Split the ask. So balance intermediate vet and feed aid with your long-term building capacity. So really looking at what the needs are. If it's a program, if it's just if you're getting kind of an operations stuff for your own, just make sure that you set up those pieces beforehand and spread it out. Don't make it all go to, one thing. Definitely don't put it all as salary because that would not fly. So you want to spread that out across a couple of areas. Um, Work the directory. So go through the instrumental, the funds for NGOs, and Grant Watch, and make sure that you just kind of just go in and browse and look and see. You can sort too by your need. So you can go in there and say, whatever you guys are doing, if you're a dog rescue or whatever you're doing, you could put that in there, those keywords, and they'll come up. Stay ready again, keep transparency scale and documentation current to qualify quickly. So have all of your organizational documents and things up to date and in place, and all your certifications and all that ready to go, so that when you go to submit for the grants, you have it all right in front of you and ready to go in there, because sometimes there's problems with their websites when you're going to submit. So that's kind of it for today. Just wanted to give you again my contact information. Like I said, this PowerPoint will be up on my website, which is listed here. And you can go in there and look at all of the other webinar series, and you can always reach out to me. And please, if you have something that's going on, like I said before, in your organization that you want to address, and it's something I can help with, you can just reach out to me and we can just have a conversation about that, or we can do another one of these Tuesdays with Tom webinar series about that and help everyone. So that's kind of it for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next week. Thank you.